There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the fog lifts and clarity arrives like the first light of dawn breaking through a long, dark night. Your person has finally arrived at such a place, a sacred threshold of deep realization where truth can no longer be avoided or softened by excuses. This moment feels both painful and profoundly humbling, like standing naked before a mirror that reflects not just the surface, but the very essence of who they have been and what they have done. They now understand with piercing clarity that the physical distance stretching between the two of you is not simply a matter of unfortunate circumstance or the cruel hand of fate. It is not something that happened to them, but rather something that happened because of them. This distance, this gulf that separates your hearts and bodies, is in truth the direct and undeniable result of their own actions, or perhaps more accurately and more painfully, the result of their profound lack of action. For such a long time, longer than they care to admit, they were unable or unwilling to step forward in the ways that truly mattered, in the ways that relationships require to survive and flourish. They allowed precious opportunities to express their heart to simply pass by, like letting autumn leaves slip through their fingers without ever really grasping them. They failed repeatedly to give you the emotional security you deserved, the steady ground beneath your feet that every person needs when they dare to love someone. And because of that failure, because of those countless missed moments and unuttered words, they now carry the heavy weight of guilt and regret like stones in their pockets, dragging them down with each passing day. Deep inside, in the quiet chambers of their heart where truth cannot be hidden, they feel they have hurt you. Not only through the things they actively did, the thoughtless words or careless actions, but more often and more devastatingly through the things they didn't do. Their silence in moments when you desperately needed reassurance spoke louder than any words could have. That absence of comfort, that void where support should have been, communicated messages they never intended to send. They see now, with the painful benefit of hindsight, that their passivity and constant hesitation planted seeds of doubt deep in your heart, seeds that grew into thorns that wounded you from the inside. And yet, despite all this awareness, they believe with a kind of heartbroken certainty that you may not fully realize the intensity of the emotions they've been carrying for you all along. Beneath their guarded demeanor, behind the walls they constructed to protect themselves, lies a depth of love and passion that they never allowed you to fully see or experience. It was always there, burning like a hidden fire, but they kept it concealed, locked away in the vault of their chest where it could harm no one, but also reach no one. Looking back now with clearer eyes, they can trace the problem to one fundamental thing, one critical failure that set everything else in motion. They never truly opened themselves to you. In the past, during all those moments when vulnerability was called for, they kept their most vulnerable truths locked away, protected behind layers of defense mechanisms and emotional armor. Perhaps this was done out of fear, that primal terror of being seen and found wanting. Perhaps it came from pride, that stubborn belief that they should be strong and self-sufficient. Or perhaps it stemmed from the mistaken belief that love could be shown without words, that you would simply know, simply feel what they felt without them having to risk the exposure of saying it out loud. They now see, with a clarity that cuts like broken glass, how wrong that was. How fundamentally misguided their approach had been. By keeping their feelings hidden, by maintaining that emotional distance even while seeking physical or superficial connection, they denied you the closeness and transparency you needed. They withheld the very thing that could have bridged the gap between you, the honest revelation of their inner world, their fears and hopes and dreams and the way you featured in all of them. In this present moment, their heart is restless, churning with one overwhelming desire that eclipses all others. They want to reach out to you. They want to offer you a sincere, heartfelt apology, not the half-hearted explanations or empty words of the past that meant nothing and changed nothing, but a genuine acknowledgement of their mistakes. A real accounting of the ways they failed you and failed the sacred trust you placed in their hands. They know, with a knowledge that burns in their conscience, that they have caused you to question their loyalty and intentions. In doing so, They contributed to trust issues that should never have existed between two people who genuinely cared for each other. They realize now that their excuses, all those reasons they gave for why they couldn't show up fully, were not only unnecessary but also actively damaging, eroding the very foundation of what you were building together, brick by brick, excuse by excuse. When they think back on their behavior, allowing their memory to replay those painful scenes, certain moments sting them most, standing out like burns on sensitive skin. They remember with shame how at times they responded to your texts or calls with coldness, arrogance, or impatience. They wince at the thought of how dismissive they could be, treating your reaching out as an inconvenience or burden, as though you were asking too much when all you were really asking for was love, attention, and basic respect. The simple human dignity of being valued by someone you value. In stark contrast, you have always approached them with gentleness, even in moments when they absolutely didn't deserve it. Your love was never harsh, never manipulative, never weaponized to control or diminish them. It was patient and empathetic, offering grace where judgment would have been justified. You gave them the benefit of the doubt more times than they can count, more times than any reasonable person should have. And yet, in response to your warmth and openness, they met you with walls, with distance, with the cold shoulder of someone too afraid to let anyone in. It wasn't until they began to deliberately isolate themselves from the toxic people in their life that they started to see the truth clearly. Stepping away from those negative influences, those voices that whispered doubt and cynicism into their ear, allowed their mind to finally clear like clouds parting after a storm. They realized that much of their own guarded behavior, the defensiveness and emotional unavailability, had been shaped and reinforced by unhealthy relationships and toxic environments that surrounded them. Once those voices were silenced, once they created space between themselves and those who drained their light, they could finally hear their own heart speaking. And it was speaking your name. Over and over, like a prayer or a heartbeat, your name echoed in the newly quiet spaces of their soul. They now see you in a completely different light, with new eyes that perceive what was always there but obscured. Not because you've changed or transformed into someone different, but because they are finally looking without the haze of outside influence clouding their vision. They understand now, with a certainty that shakes them to their core, that you were never just another person in their life, never just one among many. You were the one who helped them connect with their higher self, with the best version of who they could become. Whether you realize it or not, whether you intended it or not, you were a catalyst for their personal growth and spiritual evolution. You encouraged them, both directly through your words and indirectly through your example, to reflect on who they were and who they wanted to become. That influence has been profound and far-reaching, touching aspects of their character they didn't even know existed. By helping them connect with their higher self, by holding up that mirror of possibility, you set them on a path toward raising their own consciousness and expanding their awareness. They are more aware now, more awake to the consequences of their actions, the power of their words, and the critical importance of vulnerability in love. They see patterns they were blind to before. They understand dynamics that once mystified them. They recognize the sacred responsibility that comes with holding someone's heart. This awakening hasn't been easy or comfortable. In fact, it has been accompanied by an overwhelming sense of remorse that crashes over them in waves, sometimes threatening to pull them under. The weight of what they've done and failed to do presses down on them in quiet moments, making it hard to breathe, hard to forgive themselves. But along with the regret, there's also something else blooming in the garden of their heart. There's gratitude. Deep, sincere gratitude for the lessons learned, for your seemingly endless patience, and for the love that you gave so freely, asking for so little in return. They are learning, perhaps for the first time in their life, that love is not sustained by passion alone. It requires openness, the courage to be vulnerable. It demands accountability, the willingness to say when you're wrong. And it calls for the bravery to be seen fully, flaws and wounds and imperfections and all. They regret not showing you that side of themselves sooner, not trusting you with their whole self when they had the chance. But they are also determined not to let this awareness go to waste, not to let these hard-won lessons fade back into unconsciousness. In their heart, in the secret chambers where hope still lives despite everything, they are already composing the words they want to say to you. They imagine themselves in your presence, telling you everything they've held back for so long. How deeply they care, how much you mean to them, how fundamentally sorry they are for letting fear and pride get in the way of something beautiful. They want to promise you that if they are ever given another chance, if grace and fate conspire to bring you back together, they will not hide behind silence again. They will speak when something needs to be said, act when action is needed, and never again make you feel unseen or unloved or unimportant. They will show up fully, completely, without reservation or hesitation. They know that apologies, no matter how sincere, cannot erase the past or undo what has been done. Words alone cannot heal wounds that took time and neglect to create. But they hope, with a hope that feels both fragile and fierce, that their words can begin to heal the wounds, can start the slow process of restoration and rebuilding. They long for the opportunity to show you through both words and actions that they have changed, that this transformation is real and lasting. They want to rebuild the bridge they once let crumble from neglect, to restore the trust that was lost piece by piece, and to give you the love they should have given you all along, the love you deserved from the very beginning. And as they reflect on this entire journey, the mistakes and the distance and the painful lessons, they understand something else, something perhaps even more important. Even if the path back to you is long and uncertain, even if restoration never comes, they will carry this new awareness with them for the rest of their life. It has become part of who they are now. Because of you, they have grown in ways they never imagined possible. Because of you, they have seen what love can be when it's honored and cherished. And because of you, they know now that the greatest tragedy in life is not losing someone to circumstance or distance, but losing them because you never showed them your true heart, never let them see the depths of what you felt. I know you might find it hard to believe, and I understand your skepticism given everything that has happened, but every step I'm taking right now, every decision that might look like distance or detachment from the outside, is rooted in my deep desire to protect you. You may not always see the forces I see operating behind the scenes, but there are people in this world who, for their own complicated reasons, feel jealousy when they witness the happiness we share together. It's as if our joy, when we're connected and aligned, casts a light so bright that it illuminates everything around us, but that same light draws shadows too, shadows of envy and resentment. I don't want those shadows to touch you or taint what we have. So I've chosen, as difficult as it is, to stand back for now, keeping some space between us until the time is right for us to come together without those external threats. This isn't about avoiding you or running away from what we share. It's not about losing interest or having second thoughts. It's about creating the conditions where our love can thrive without unnecessary interference from people who wish us harm or who cannot bear to see us happy. I am working quietly in the background, like someone clearing a path through dense forest, to remove the obstacles that stand in the way of our future together. Until I fix certain things in my life that need fixing, until I find that stability and security I know we both deserve and need as a foundation, I will remain at a distance that probably feels painful to you. Please understand it's not because I want to be away from you. In truth, nothing would make me happier than to be by your side every single day, to wake up next to you and fall asleep knowing you're there. But I need to make a way for us, to prepare the ground so that when we finally come together fully and completely, it will be with no looming fears hanging over our heads, no fragile ground beneath our feet that could collapse at any moment. I want our life together to be strong and unshakable, built on a foundation that can weather any storm, free from the kind of vulnerabilities that could hurt us later down the road. I understand more than you may realize that my silence troubles you deeply. I know there are moments, probably in the quiet of night when sleep won't come, when you lie awake wondering if I still feel the same way about you. You question whether this connection means as much to me as it does to you. I can imagine the questions that run through your mind like a river that won't stop flowing. Does he truly want this? Does he still believe in us? Is this all just words, or is there substance behind them? Love, let me put your heart at ease as much as I can from this distance. My quietness is not a sign of indifference or fading feelings. It is actually the opposite of what you fear. It is the sound of me working, building, and sacrificing for the sake of what we have and what we could become together. If I didn't care, if you didn't matter to me the way you do, I wouldn't be making these changes at all. I would simply walk away and find an easier path that didn't require this level of effort and transformation. Every step I take right now has a purpose, and that purpose is you. I'm not making small, superficial changes to impress you temporarily. I'm reshaping entire parts of my life, tearing down old structures and building new ones. That kind of transformation takes time, tremendous effort, and an unshakable belief in the goal I'm striving toward. And that goal is not just to be with you in passing moments or casual encounters, but to share a real life together, whether that means marriage or a deep lifelong partnership that honors what we mean to each other. You are my beloved, the one my soul recognizes and calls out to. My vision of the future has you at its center, not as an afterthought or a maybe, but as the essential element around which everything else arranges itself. I'm not doing this to see where things go or to keep my options open. I'm doing this because I want something lasting, something real and solid, something that both of us can look back on years from now with pride and joy, knowing we built it together through patience and faith. I also know you carry a hurt from the past, a wound that hasn't fully healed, and it pains me deeply to know I contributed to it. You feel, and perhaps rightfully so, that I should have fought harder for us before, that I should have been braver when the moment demanded courage. I understand that disappointment. I've replayed those moments in my mind countless times, wondering why I hesitated, why I let fear steer me away from what my heart wanted. The truth is, I was terrified of the unknown future we would face together. I had convinced myself, through elaborate mental gymnastics and self-deception, that love, no matter how intense or real it felt, could be replaced by comfort, routine, and material pleasures. I thought that if I just surrounded myself with enough distractions, enough substitute gratifications, I could bury the longing I felt for you deep enough that it would eventually disappear. But I was wrong. Profoundly, completely wrong. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in this world or any other, that compares to the connection we share. It is not something that can be substituted or imitated or replicated with someone else. Our bond is both spiritual and magical, operating on frequencies that transcend the ordinary. It's the kind of connection that defies logic and survives even in silence and separation, like roots that grow deeper underground where no one can see them. When I think of you, it's not just affection or attraction I feel, though those are certainly present. It's a deep sense of home, a recognition in my soul that this is where I belong, that you are who I belong with. And every time I tried to deny it, every time I tried to convince myself I could move on and forget you, life had a way of showing me otherwise, of bringing me back to the fundamental truth I was trying to escape. That is why I am here now, doing the hard work that needs to be done, making the sacrifices that love requires. I don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. I don't want fear to rob us of the life we could have together, the beautiful future that awaits if we're brave enough to reach for it. Yes, this stage we're in right now is difficult and demanding. It requires patience from both of us, and patience is never easy when love is so strong and the desire to be together is so powerful. But I believe with everything in me that when the time comes, when we finally close this distance, we will look back at this period and see it for what it really was, the necessary foundation for something beautiful and unbreakable. So please don't take my distance as doubt about you or us. Don't mistake my silence for absence of love or fading commitment. If anything, my love for you is the very reason I'm doing all of this, enduring this separation and working on myself. I'm clearing the path so that when we step forward together into our future, there will be no looking over our shoulders with worry, no wondering if the ground will crumble beneath us. Just you and me, walking hand in hand into a future we've both dreamed of, both prayed for in our own ways. You are my beloved. You are my reason for transformation. And though I may be silent now, separated by circumstances that feel unbearable sometimes, know that every beat of my heart is counting down to the day when silence will no longer be necessary, when distance will be just a memory.